Another week, another team builder that's recorded a week after I've actually played the game. Although, this one I think is kinda good reason. After fighting with my laptop for so long at the start of the season, as well as through other content, I finally decided to buy a PC. And so, things look a little bit different. And hopefully that's a change for the better. How's it going, guys? And welcome back to the channel. Today, it is my SPL D-League Week 4 team builder, where your Slow Bohemians will be taking on Lax, the coach of the Showdown Shoguns. Or at least, would have been taking on Lax. However, following his Week 3 game against A12, Lax decided to step away from the league, for a combination of personal reasons, as well as there was definitely just a little bit of frustration there, which I completely get. Lax probably was the favourite on paper for this, and you could kind of tell that he was getting quite frustrated at things, so he decided to step away, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So in his place, we are taking on Steve, the coach of the House of Mouse. Now, fair dues to Steve for actually stepping up in the first place, because at the end of the day, this is an O3 team he's taking over, whilst he has other Wi-Fi commitments, as well as his work commitments, which, you know, he's a nurse, he's an incredibly busy guy, so full credit to you. You might have noticed that Steve's links have been in the description for a little bit of time, so this didn't really come as a surprise. Would have liked to have played Lax, you know, have the whole, you know, showdown players facing off on Wi-Fi thing, but wasn't to be. It is what it is. The other reason I would have preferred to play Lax is because prior to transactions, Lax's team I matched up really nicely into. His team was really susceptible to toxic spikes, and yes, he still had some offensive threats that, you know, Steve no longer has. Steve just picked up a hell of a lot more offensive threats, which is just problematic for my team specifically. If you guys are still enjoying these team builders, do let me know by dropping a like, a comment, and maybe a subscription if you're interested. I don't know, it's up to you, I'm not going to force you. And hyping, that's also a YouTube thing now, you know, that'd be fun. Once again, don't have to. Like, I'm still figuring out this whole YouTube thing, and there's better stuff out there, but you know, we have fun with these things. Without further ado, let's get into what Steve's team is now, following his overhaul of the squad. So Steve's team consists of Iron Valiant, Gliscor, King Gambit, Kirim, Galarian Zapdos with access to Terra, Chandelure, which is his secondary Terra captain, Regieleki, Ogerpon Cornerstone, Slowking, Weezing, and Porygon 2. There's actually very few mons that survived, the only ones of note being the Valiant, the Gliscor, and the Ogerpon. However, he picked up a bunch of threats, one of which I thought I'd managed to get away with not facing when it was dropped by Kaz and Shiro a few weeks ago. Terra Galarian Zapdos is very scary for my team, as we noticed with Terra Halucha a few weeks ago, except this one hits even harder and probably can't be mirror herb cheesed, because it's more likely to just run choice to this game and absolutely tear me to pieces, especially if he does go the Terra Dark route, which is what I'm expecting. Iron Valiant's obviously a phenomenal mon, and I have a lot of trouble with it this week, especially in conjunction with Kirim, which puts my Jirachi under a hell of a lot of pressure. Outside of that, I don't really have great Moonblast switch-ins. You combine that with his defensive core that's capable of dealing with my offense, the combination of Gliscor plus Slowking deals with a lot of it, and then, you know, Weezing, which might come, it might not come, could be there for the Masquerada, but I feel like he's going to go a more aggressive approach around Masquerada, especially since he has Vacuum Wave Valiant. And overall, there's just a lot of stuff that I can't quite exploit with this team as well as I could have with Lax's. Ogerpon Cornerstone means that this is my third Ogerpon, and I actually round out the quadrilogy next week, so let's just say I'm sick and tired of playing this mon. Cornerstone isn't the worst, but it's just another mon to add on to my Jirachi pressure. So, the combination of his fat and his offense really puts me on the back burner, and felt quite restricting in prep. However, the bits that came together, while this is probably the team that I'm the most uncertain about this season, hopefully is enough for me to be able to pick up the win. Let's get into what I brought. We kick things off with our savior of week 3 in Landers, except nothing too crazy this time. We're just going with a life form set, with Earth Power, Psychic, Focus Blast, and Crunch. I needed all of these coverage moves for a variety of different reasons. Focus Blast predominantly there for the Porygon 2, because that thing is an absolute pain in the hole, It also gave me an option for outgoing Kirim if he decides to go Boots Fat variant. Crunch is there for Slow King because Slow King's probably his switch into Special Lando. Psychic, just there for general damage, hits Wheezing, my best bet against Gliscor because I'm not nasty about this week, and then Earth Power for strong stab that works quite well across the board. Nothing too crazy in the EVs either because I need this thing to outspeed Galar Zapdos since I'm kind of expecting Banded. He might go the bulk up route as well, and yeah, Focus Blast also really helps if the Galar Zapdos does decide to go Terra Dark. I need Lando to be punching some serious holes, and depending on what he brings, I might need to be incredibly aggressive with this thing. However, its offensive potency should be able to make this a nice punch for punch game. Along with that, we have Quaquaval here, making its return, and we've gone with Assault Vested again. And the Assault Vest here is just to kind of help with some of the threats. This can live a hit from Iron Valiant, it can live hits from Kirim. I think it takes Specs Freeze Dry, so that's very important. And yeah, overall I just kind of needed the damage. We've gone with a set here of Aqua Step, Close Combat, Knockoff, and U-Turn. Dual Stab is fairly self-explanatory here. Knockoff to get rid of the items, the main one of course being on the Slowking. And then lastly we have U-Turn to be able to pivot and get on out of there. Actually no, we changed Knockoff to Aqua Jet last minute because I decided I needed the priority. And that's part of the reason why we're Torrent this week. Torrent is because if Iron Valiant hits me, I need that extra little boost for Aqua Step into Aqua Jet to be able to pick up the kill, after a little bit of chip from Life Orb and something else that we'll get into momentarily. So not having Moxie and not having Knockoff could very much work in detriment, but it was a 50-50, there was a risk I felt I needed to take, and I needed the priority here, for the combination of the fighting types that are quite scary. Also kinda helped to pick off a weak and Regieleki, because that thing's kind of annoying. We then get to our Emu this week, and we went a bit fancy with the Emu. We're Terra Fighting for the third week in a row. I know, I'm sick and tired of it too, but there's a King Gambit, okay? I kinda have to bring Terra Fighting. So we've gone with Subcombine this week. And the idea behind Subcombine is I can actually sub up on Slowking relatively freely, which deals with a lot of his main options being Trick, Yawn, and T-Wave as his methods around this thing. Then just being able to spam Combined in front of a bunch of things' faces, especially behind screens, which we'll get into that later. This means that I can kind of keep the sub up, and then with the combination of Stored Power plus Terra Blast Fighting, I should be able to just steamroll this team. I can't really think of any Slowking option that does beat me. The only one is maybe like Psych Up, and if you bring Psych Up, hats off to you, because that would be phenomenal tech. It's the only one I'm not covered for with this set. This bulk means that we do take a Gliscor EQ behind a screen, and if we are +1 speed def, we do take a Slowking Scald if we're not Terastallized. That means I can get 2 Combines up for the price of 1 sub, and it's only for the sake, because I'm getting 2 rounds of leftovers, it only means I'm taking 12.5% for the cost of getting a sub up. This thing I do think is going to have to put in a hell of a lot of work this week for me to have a chance. There was a few other sets that I considered that I'm not going to mention just in case Steve does pull a miraculous run for playoffs. You know, 0-3 is a difficult start, but I have faith in him. So, we'll leave it at that. This thing is my main win con for this week, and it kind of has to put in the work. We get to Masquerada here, which is our dedicated lead this week, rocking the Focus Sash, with a set of Knockoff, Low Kick, Triple Axle, and Toxic Spikes. So, the coverage is fairly self-explanatory. Knockoff for stab, and just getting rid of items is nice. Low Kick for the King Gambit as well as for the Kirim, and Triple Axle to deal with stuff like Gliscor and the Zapdos. I didn't need Flower Trick this week because there wasn't really anything I felt I'd be clicking it on. Last move T-Spike was because there was a lot of instances where I really liked the T-Spike. Especially for that Iron Valiant and any Kirims that decide to not go heavy duty boots this week. It also covered a Terra Dark Galar Zapdos if it is switching out through clicking Bandit U-Turn. So the Focus Sash kind of covered a few different instances. One was lead Valiant, another was lead Ogerpon, which kind of gave me the safety net of clicking Triple Axle. Rather than going for Low Kick to get it down to sturdy, I could risk it because I knew I'd live the hit. Toxic Spikes is also a really good click if he decides to lead with his Gliscor and click Protect in my face to be able to activate the Toxic Orb. And then having the Triple Axle for later puts me in really good shape. Overall, I think T-Spikes is going to do a hell of a lot of work, and if he doesn't bring the Wheezing, I think this mod in general can do a hell of a lot of work. Which kind of... Wheezing is a 50-50 here, depends on the kind of build he's going for. We shall see when the battle comes, I guess. We then get to Rotom, and as I mentioned earlier, we do have screens this week, because I couldn't really think of any other solutions for his offense, so I decided to slap on screens. And so, here we are with screens Rotom. We have Light Clay, obviously, because, you know, it's screens, it's SV, you need them. With a set of Reflect, Light Screen, Hex, and Volt Switch. Hex is obviously there because of T-Spikes, and his main Electric Switch in being a mon that's going to want to Toxic itself, getting that boosted damage is quite helpful. Reflect and Light Screen I hope to be able to get up on a lot of his team, the main mons of course being that Gliscor as well as that Slowking. We have a little bit of bulk to ensure that if he does go Terra Flying on the Gathered Zap, that we don't get too KO'd by Brave Bird. And then, of course, just as fast as we didn't really need a huge amount of speed, we're only creeping a min-speed Gliscor. And then a little bit of special attack investment for that added oomph on our Hexes and Volt Switches. Rotom is super important, and if it goes down early, it means that things have not gone to plan, and that I'm in a little bit of trouble. And rounding out the team, as I mentioned a little bit when we were discussing the matchup breakdown, we have Jirachi because it's absolutely essential. We've gone with a mixed bulk set here with a Culver Berry covering any sort of Flame shenanigans from Kyurem. It also covers knockoff Galar Zapdos as well as knockoff Iron Valiant if he goes the physical route, which, you know, I felt that I kind of needed the color, as well as King Gambit. And the reason for that is because we have Encore. We have a set of Stealth Rock, Encore, Psychic Noise, and Aura Sphere this week. Nearly went physical, decided special was better. I think it makes it, especially because of Psychic Noise being able to shut down so many mons. We have Encore because this works quite well as a mon to deal with King Gambit, actually. And Encore also covered any sort of sub-cure shenanigans that it wants to try to go for. Rocks are important because I need the chip on the non-heavy duty boot stuff, which I think is probably going to be everything. Slowking might run boots, but I kind of think there's better items for it. The main one that I can think of at the minute being something like Rocky Helmet, or maybe even Culver Berry to be able to cover the variety of dart moves that I have this week. So, the bulk, like I said, is to help with my special attack Kyurem Earth powers. The defense allowed me to live a +2 CC from an Iron Valiant in case that comes into play, which I think it could. And then yeah, the special attack investment to help with Psychic Noise plus Aura Sphere get that extra damage. And that is the team that we are bringing this week for week 4. It's safe to say that it's probably the team that I'm least confident in regards to these first few weeks of the season, but because I have to play it in a very particular way. And it's not even like the way versus Dashing where I kind of felt like I had backup outs. This kind of only has one mode, and if that mode doesn't work, things can fall apart incredibly quickly, especially if I'm under a ton of offensive pressure from his large variety of threats. It very much depends on what Steve decides to bring this week, and how I'm able to deal with that accordingly. Anyways guys, I hope you all have enjoyed that team builder. If you did, do let me know, as well as what you think of kind of this new layout now with the PC, and the fact that, you know, you can actually see a hell of a lot more of my background. It's incredibly weird for me, but, you know, I'll get used to it over time. Anyways guys, I hope you've all enjoyed, and I shall catch you tomorrow for the week 4 battle. Peace!